Hi, everyone. Welcome to another really exciting episode of Voice of Crypto's live session. And we're going to be starting really soon. We're waiting on a guest, and we have a really exciting guest lined up for today. Hi, Radhika.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Emma. Well, we were just waiting for you, and you're right in time.
Lovely, lovely. Good to have you guys. How many people do we have?
We have just you and me. This is going to be a live interview. Would you be turning your camera on?
Yeah, just give me a minute.
Absolutely, no worries.
Is the lighting and everything fine here?
Yes, absolutely perfect.
Okay.
Amazing. It's really great to have you on our show today, and we're already live. We were just waiting for you. Guests are trying to join in, and it's my pleasure, like I said, to have you on our show today. We at Voice of Crypto organize weekly sessions with guests from the Web3, blockchain, crypto space, and you have been in this space for quite some time. And before that, I think you've been an amazing content creator, and that is exactly what today's session is going to be about. I would briefly introduce our guest today, Radhika Bajoria, to everyone. She is a really fantastic young lady who's the founder of Radically Yours, if I'm not wrong. She's based out of the United States, and she's doing some amazing work and creating some really engaging content. She was also chosen one of the top 100 voices of LinkedIn, if I'm not wrong, in 2019. Correct me if I'm wrong.
20 top 20 voices in
Top 20
2020.
voices. Oh, wow, that's amazing. Interesting wordplay as
Yeah.
well. And we would love to know more about you. So the stage is all yours. Please tell us a little bit about your journey, what you're currently doing, and what your plans for the near future are.
Sure. Is my light flickering a lot because I can see that happening from my end? Should I
Not,
like just move places?
I think this just works fine. I think there's a bit of flicker in the background, but that should
Yeah.
be fine.
Just give me 1 minute. I'll just
No
sit
worries.
out of my cabin. Just give me one
All
minute.
right.
Yeah. Hi. I'm back.
Amazing.
Cool. Yeah, so thanks a lot for having me. Quite excited to be talking to your audience and community today. And I met some of your folks in London. I was so
Yeah.
energized with their energy levels because all of them were so passionate with whatever they were building and the direction that they wanted their company to grow in. So, as much as I would have loved to also have a direction and purpose to my life, I clearly didn't have when I started writing on LinkedIn. It randomly came in my mind one day that I should start writing because I saw people lesser than my age while I was 18, though, writing so many pieces on LinkedIn and even having
Yeah.
businesses of their own. And sometimes, right, it strikes your mind that what are you doing in your life really, apart from the education and the degree, which you are, anyways, obliged to study for? What is it that will give you an edge over the others? So this made me think, and I was very fortunate to have good friends around me who were also mentors. You wouldn't believe they were of my same age group, but I think age really doesn't matter as much as experience does, which actually makes a person very mature. So my friends were quite mature, more than me, at the age of 18, and they told me that, Radhika, you just have two options.
Yeah.
Either you start writing on LinkedIn now, or it will happen never, because then you will be lost in the crowd, and this is your own sweet time, also because age is an advantage to you. So even if it
Absolutely.
doesn't work out, you are not losing out on anything. Time is in
Mm.
your favor, and age is your biggest trump card. So might as well use it while you have it. So I have been a person, until I get convinced, I really don't work on it. So it took me 3 months of self conviction. And then one fine day, while sitting in the library of my college, I contemplated that, okay, I don't know anything about the industry. I don't read newspapers. I was not a voracious reader either. And
Mm.
as much as you would like to believe that I've been writing for a long time, it's not the truth.
Mm.
I recently started writing. When I started writing
Mm.
on LinkedIn, I was never a writer before, and a lot of people, do not believe this when I tell it to them, because they're like, "How can you then write?" I'm like, "It's just the passion that grew over me, and I started with that." So my first post, by the way, was on philosophy, and
Wow.
it was as bullshit as it could get because it was just all about random information that came to my mind. Something about moon, stars, and the sun was
Yeah.
something that I had written, and it didn't make sense. But at
Mhm.
least I got 3 likes. Although at that time I was very, very disheartened that what is this? Not at least expected 30 people to like it or pay attention to it. But my friend,
Mhm.
on the other hand, was such an optimist. He told me that view the glass as half full and not half
Wow.
empty. He told me that at least think that 3 people have given you attention. And now, how do
Mm.
you multiply this attention of 3 people into 30, 300, 3,000, and 3 lakh? So that
Mm.
was one message that clearly struck to my mind. And ever since then, I've never been disheartened. Today also, after 2 lakh followers, when I still get very less traction, lesser than 300, it just doesn't matter to me. And it's grown beyond numbers to me, because I think a like is only something that is like an attraction, but your
Mm.
audience is only loyal to you if they trust you with the information you provide. And I'm very proud to say that my followers trust me with what I say, and that's the biggest gift that I get. And it's not the likes or the comments that I get on my posts. So yeah, that's how the journey started, and that's how it's going.
Absolutely. So, have you? I mean, I know that we're on a show called Voice of Crypto, and while
Yeah.
our focus would be content creation, I know that you are a little bit, tad bit interested in the Web3 space. So, how did you sort of come across the Web3 blockchain space, and from sort of pursuing a career as a content creator to now an entrepreneur and also being interested in Web3 blockchain? That's a lot on your plate. So, how did
Yeah.
you get exposed to this sort of sector, and how did your journey pan out from, let's say, being a content creator to an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think this sector has always been so exciting for me because every day what I read is not something that I read the next day. There has been such fast paced developments happening in the industry that you really cannot keep a count or a tab on it. Like, it moves much faster than even the public stock markets. And there was a time which it also is a bad thing, because at some point in time the whole blockchain industry was about to get bust. And that's what happened with FTX as well. People just jumped onto that bandwagon of fear of
Yeah.
missing out. And also the fact that, okay, so much of brouhaha is happening about the crypto market in the
Mm,
industry. So why not just get into the crowd without even
mm,
understanding it? So that was
absolutely.
one thing that I was very, very sure of. Every time I read about the industry, I had my friends who made quick money from this industry by trading in crypto, but I was always very, very cautious because I knew that whatever comes too soon goes too fast as well. So
True.
I think this industry was also like that. But I think you only learn from your mistakes, and unless a big fuck up happens in your life, you really don't
Mm,
know you
true.
that you were headed in wrong direction. So I think the FTX scandal was one
Yeah.
of the red flags, because of which everyone, even the founder and the investor side, have become cautious in terms of how they do it. And I think that caution is really interesting me these days, because then when I read news about new founders coming up with new business verticals to scale up in crypto, it really excites me. And in India, where I am currently, we have so many businesses which have scaled up to a massive level. One of them is just like Coinbase in the US. We have
Mm,
here, it deals into NFT exchanges, and the currency through which it gets exchanged is crypto. So Lakshmi is the name of the platform.
just,
The website is quite interesting as well. I will share it with you all at the end. But
mm,
yeah, there is a lot of things happening, and the good thing is that the global community is so friendly that
yeah.
someone sitting in India can get connected to someone in London or in the US and be as if they have been friends for 10 years. So that is how supportive the community is, because in other sectors, while you may see competition, you might not see as much collaboration, which
True.
I see in crypto industry. And I think it's only by joining hands that we will grow together. And this is some soft skill aspect that really excites me about the community as a whole, apart from the technicals, of course, which is
Yeah.
always so mesmerizing. And without
Mm.
going into details of those technicals, I'd just like to say that I do keep chatting with founders, and one thing that I see lacking in the space is women founders. I would love to see more of them in the blockchain and the crypto space.
Yeah.
The I interview a lot of them on my show, Wiping Out the Norm, and one common answer that I get is that they are very fear of something going wrong.
Yeah.
Women by nature are more conservative than men, because nature has made us so. Of course, you improvise on that and polish
Mm.
up while you grow. But as you have in your core nature, you do not like to take risks. And that's why we don't see more women. But
Mm.
like I told you, the good part is that the industry as a whole has become very cautionary, and I am very hopeful to see more women founders now. And that is what is exciting me more about the space.
Absolutely. And on that
Yeah.
note, I think, would you like to talk about a project that you're building? I remember last time we were speaking and you were talking about uniting a lot of women founders across the globe, and it
Yeah.
really caught my attention. So, if you would like to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, sure. It's very interesting how the show is getting everyone from across the globe to speak. And it's very interesting to see how perspectives differ, basis the culture, the upbringing, and the surroundings that a person has been groomed into. For example, when I ask this common question to my guests, as to why do you think female founders get funding at a much lesser pace than male founders, some of them just say that it's the talent and the merit. I don't think so it has got anything to do with gender. And some of them actually said bluntly that this question doesn't make sense, because it's all about the way you pitch. It's not about being a man or a woman. While some people from other parts of the world tell me that we do acknowledge the fact that there is very less funding going to women, and that is because they do not project their businesses to be bigger than themselves. They are very, very cautionary, conservative, and they do not like to talk about their vision in a larger than life way, which sometimes acts against investors because they cannot see the bigger picture. So
Mhm.
such are the views that I get from across the globe. And when I spoke to someone from Palestine, we all know how the state of Palestine has been for the refugees and for other people because of the
Mm.
Syria war. But when I spoke to the lady, she was telling me that she's the only female fund manager in the whole
Mm.
of Palestine, and how she's supporting tech founders. And she
Wow.
told me the best part about tech is that it is boundaryless. You can, being in Palestine, you can work with a client in the US and still make money. So she is facilitating that, and it's so nice to know, because being in London or being in India, we still, I think, are privileged to have the access to network and people in general. But in states like Palestine and in places like Nigeria, for example, an African continent, people really don't even know where to go home to speak to. And
Yeah.
when I talk to women founders, they're like, yeah, because you speak to so many people from across the globe, can you connect us with these people? When I
Mm.
connect them, and when I see the change happening, I think that's where I believe that true real impact has been created. When two people connect with each other and something meaningful comes out of it. And
Mm.
meaningful doesn't mean just in terms of money, but also in terms of the connection they build in the long term, because you never know how a person can be helpful in any
Mm.
way at any given point in time. So yeah, that is how we're creating an impact across the globe. And I take pride in saying that it's not just pan India, but across the whole of the world. And it's very beautiful to see the support that we're getting from women, even for the younger generation, because they help them with opportunities. And it's the beauty is that when we help someone from the tier 2, tier 3 town and villages, when they come
Yeah.
up and work in places like Wall Street,
Mm.
in US, that's where the real happiness is. Because how do you really get them out of their shell where they are
Yeah.
covered, because the society
That's
still
true.
are very, very conservative, and they do not want their daughters especially to
Mm.
go out of the place where they were born. So,
Yeah.
give exposure to them, and also giving telling them about these stories of female role models that really helps them envision that okay, they can also do it. So I love the storytelling thing that is coming out through our podcast, Wiping Out the Norm, and also the fact that women are getting opportunities and professional network building uh, opportunity through us. So yeah, that keeps me going. And as you can see, how excited am I talking about it. I am as
Absolutely.
excited every morning when I wake up and think more about how I can spread this vision.
Absolutely. I think if you're passionate about your work, nothing better. Work does feel like play if you're passionate about your work.
Yeah,
So, can you talk a little bit more about Radically Yours? How did you come up with the idea of Radically Yours? And at such a
yeah.
young age, you decided to be an entrepreneur, which in itself is a journey that you already spoke about. But what was the core sort of foundation behind this idea?
Yeah, it's quite funny, because I was never thinking of starting up, but I was working in a law firm. And, there came a time when a founder approached us saying
Yeah.
that, we're looking to raise funds for our gaming company.
Mm-hmm.
And, because I used to write a lot on startups and, the funding that the startups gets on my LinkedIn, I was
Mm-hmm.
suggested that why don't you see how you can help this founder. I'm like, how do you expect me to help? Because I'm just like 20-year-old back then I
Yeah.
was. And I was like, I have my network in India. How do I help this founder get investors from Silicon Valley? And my
Yeah.
mentor told me that just try out on LinkedIn. You've got a good base. You never know how it can come out. And I just happened to talk about the founder's pitch to a lot of Silicon Valley investors, and
Wow.
thankfully, they replied back to me saying that we'd love to connect with him. Why don't you help us facilitate it? And I was like, wow, even the investment banker who is mandated to get investors for the founder, even he couldn't get Silicon Valley investors for him. And I, sitting here in India, just with my laptop screen, messaging people on LinkedIn, happened to connect him with them. So I was like, this is the power, the real power of community influence and voice on social media. I was like, I have used a lot for myself. Now it's time to go
Yeah.
beyond myself and help other people like this founder. So that's how Radically Yours came into existence, because I thought that if I could help one founder, I could help hundreds of others as well. And in that journey, I discovered how many challenges female founders face and how
Yeah.
I can help them bridge that through the networks I have, and also through the physical events that we do at Radically Yours. So we just did our first offline one in Bombay, and it was a
Mm.
huge success because it was raining crazily. Even the speakers told me that, do you mind postponing the event? I'm like, not at all. I
Mm.
literally told them this, that women are known to break barriers, and
Yeah.
today also they will break one barrier of coming
Means,
all,
yeah.
all through the blocked roads and clogged roads because of the rain. And they did
Mhm.
show up. We expected about 100 people, and some 120 women showed up. So it
Amazing.
was a massive success. And yeah, that was the way we started Radically Yours and started physical events, because we think that after COVID, everybody is very tired of virtual stuff. Even though it's happening in massive number, people still want to meet others in person. So that's how this idea of physical events also came up. And yeah, we are still connecting founders and investors. So if any crypto founder is hearing us, please reach out to us if you need any help on fundraising. And we also help founders with LinkedIn brand building, because, of course, given my expertise in LinkedIn,
Yeah.
I thought it's now time to give back from whatever I've learned. So yeah, that is also one vertical where we help founders and investors grow.
Sounds pretty amazing. So while you're doing all of this, I'm sure that there are challenges that you encounter, and I love your positivity and the optimism. And you're right that it is a very energetic environment. Web3 generally does that to people, but
Yeah.
I'm sure that you are a person like that with the kind of following that you have. So how do you deal with the challenges that you have? And if you could list out a few key challenges that you have while creating content, because I know that now content creation is sort of considered a mainstream um, employment, but earlier if you would have told someone about becoming a content creator, they would
Yeah.
have probably said, what even is this? So, even though content creation is mainstream now, it is so mainstream that there are so many challenges that content creators face day in and day out. How do you sort of maintain that niche that you have built, and yet give back and work on your business and sort of just keep on creating the content that you do?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and you raised the right statement that I was just about to speak. You know, a lot of people asked me that, have you gone crazy? Why are you dedicating your time on LinkedIn? It's gonna give you nothing. Stop wasting your
Mm-hmm.
time. Even my parents, for that matter, told me that go look for a job for yourself. And I had just graduated when I started ramping up my presence on LinkedIn. So all of them, really, even my friends told me that you're wasting a lot of time here. Stop doing that. There is no use. You're not going to gain anything. But I deep down inside knew that if I've put my foot into it, and I'm a very intuition driven person, not so much driven by logic, because logic will of course tell me to stop this thing of writing on LinkedIn and actually write. Even if I write something, logic subscribes to the fact that okay, write for someone who will pay you money in
For you.
return,
Yeah,
that some
absolutely.
bank balance looks healthy. But I
Yeah.
really didn't care about the bank balance. I cared about my inner satisfaction, my mind, which I had to make more healthier, and writing actually gave me that satisfaction. So
Mhm.
that was every time whenever I wrote something, it was something that I did by myself. So my challenges were more so on the intrinsic side than the external world, because I have always separated that in two buckets, and whatever falls in the external challenge bucket, it comes in and it goes out very fast. So I don't
Mhm.
even pay my attention there, because my time, our time and energies as human beings are very limited anyways. So if you focus on the latter part of what the world is saying, you'll never reach to the point where you have envisioned yourself to be. So speaking of inner challenges, of course I had a lot of discomfort in the beginning, because the whole world was against me, and I had to be resilient myself, telling myself that okay, I have to still get this done and prove, not to anyone else but myself, that okay, if I've taken this step, it is for a reason and it will pay off in some way or the other. And you wouldn't believe it that whenever I used to apply for a job, also people who denied me, they are writing to me 3 years down the line now, is saying that good you didn't join us, because had you joined us you wouldn't have time to build your own personal LinkedIn profile and grow in this way. So it's quite redeeming to see that way, that how self conviction and self belief really helps in the long term. It's not at all a short term game. And that was one another challenge that I faced initially, that I thought that everything is about short term gratification, instant gratification, But this journey has taught me the principle of deferred gratification, which means that you keep putting in 100% of your effort and leave the result uh, to the universe, because it's no point in controlling the uncontrollable. Social media is fully uncontrollable platform. You really cannot control what will come out of it, but what you can control is how much can you give to it and how different can you be. So that was very challenging, to be different. I had taken so many niches to begin with. Like I told you, I started with philosophy. After
Yeah.
that, I started writing on news topics, news affairs, which got very boring after one point in time, because I just felt like one another reporter on the
Mm.
internet, and I didn't want to be that. And then finally, I chose a niche which was quite interesting, as to know about the history of a brand. For example, if I'm writing on Voice of Crypto, I would like
Mm.
to know as to what triggered the initiation of Voice of Crypto. Why is it existing? Instead of just knowing about its present community, I would love to know who was the first member who started the community. So that is what started exciting me and my audience also finally. And
Yeah.
that's how I started growing my audience base, because I would write on some brands which you would use on your daily life, but you wouldn't even know about their history. So that
Yeah.
is something that got very fascinating for both the sides of the table. And yeah, that's how I figured out that okay, if I had not gone through those challenges of knowing what I really want, I don't think so I would have found the right sweet spot for my platform. So I think challenges in a good way have really helped me always. I've never navigated them in a negative sense or thought
Mm.
about as being something obstacle, like a big barrier or an obstacle in my life. It's always been like a stepping stone to
Mm.
one another pathway. So yeah, those are some of the challenges, and of course the biggest one is the writer's block. While I was in London,
Yeah.
I really didn't write anything for 3 weeks, and
Mm.
that was, while I didn't care so much about it, it did bother me because I've always been a consistent writer. So not writing anything for 3 weeks took a toll on me, and then I was like, okay, I have to get back to it. Because one learning that I've got from also the people whom I speak to is that you're only as good as your last post. People don't
That's
really care about
yeah.
how many posts you've written for how many years and how many days, but they will
Mm.
only see what good have you written in the last post, and when was it, what was it about. So that's how I said that, okay, instead of wasting my time in the past which is gone, let me focus on what I have now and create a very nice post which will deviate all the attention on that, and people will even forget about me not being active for that long. So yeah, that's how I conquer writer's block, and I just be very very positive, because social media is a very toxic environment and a lot of people might not say it. You
Yeah.
might not even hear it from people who are creators on social media because that's their bread and butter, but the truth needs to be spoken, and it's good that gets spoken sooner than later. And you have to really get out of it. Like being on LinkedIn, I just write my post and I log out. I really don't see what other people are doing, because if you
Mm.
get into that, it's like a circle, it's like a loop
Vicious
which keeps
cycle.
on,
Yeah.
it's like
I'm
a spiral loop, you really get lost into it, and it's very difficult then to come out of it. So that's how I do it, and that's how I get out of that toxicity. So that is a
mm,
one another challenge again that I face, but very much happy that I at least know of my challenges, because unless you're aware of it, you cannot solve it. So thankfully, I'm conscious of all the challenges, and that's why it makes it very easy for me to get over it.
absolutely. And I couldn't agree more with some of those challenges. As a writer, I have constantly had a writer's block every now and then. And while there are, the internet tricks of getting away with a writer's block, I think it's an inevitable truth that all of us have to go
Oh, yeah.
through. And something that gets you going is actually being passionate about what you do, which you rightly said.
Yeah.
Won't be wrong to say that you have built a really strong brand for yourself, and now you're helping other entrepreneurs do the same. So when you sort of have that first chit chat with the founder or with a certain brand, what all do you look at exactly, and what are some of the key sort of advice or a planner or a chart that you make for them and their businesses to increase their presence in the market? I think what would be your tips and tricks to sort of build a brand?
Yeah, that's quite interesting. A lot of people have different demands.
Mhm.
Some people want to talk about all the occasions that are coming. Like, for example, even if it's Christmas, they would want to write about it. Well, some people are so serious that when I suggest them this, that it's Christmas, let's write about it, they're like, please, we don't want to do this mainstream shit. And just
Yeah.
suggest us something else. So you have to really switch your mind frames and dimensions of thinking basis what the other people want. And it's good that you understand it rather sooner because then the client would be like, if I only have to give them the advice, why am I even working with them? Because you have to really make the client, the founder who you're working with, feel so comfortable with what you're offering that they actually get nervous in your absence. So that is the level of service that you have to provide, and that's how you get differentiated, because writing anyone can do. How do you really make yourself stand out? So what we do
Yeah.
is that we suggest them that we'll have a call with you every week, once a week, and we'll just talk very naturally about your journey as to how your day has been, how your week has been, what do you think you will do ahead in your life. And just
Yeah.
from those natural conversations, we get such nice pockets of information that we tend to curate posts out of it, because at the end of the day, LinkedIn is also now becoming a platform where people want to know your individuality and your personality rather than just your work. Because of course, work will define you and your purpose or what you do, but it doesn't give you anything to take away from. Because for example, if you are from crypto and the other
Mm.
person is from fashion, how do you really establish that relatability? Of course, it won't come through work. But of course, if you get connected to them, it should be on a personal level where you're connecting on something apart from work. So that
Mhm.
is what we try to figure out from our conversations with people. Because if you like a person, you will definitely buy their brand. That is
True.
a given. Like for example, in Shark Tank, how many
Mhm.
pitches have you just seen on the TV? And just basis the founder pitch, what they speak, you're like, okay, seems very exciting, let me try it out.
Yeah.
Basis how they speak, how they talk, and how they conduct themselves. So that is what we project about founders. And it's usually very interesting, because if you only talk about their work, they'll also get bored, we'll also get bored, and even the audience will get bored who's reading their post, because
Yeah.
how much of the same thing you can repeat. But if you talk about a person, it's like a deep ocean which never ends. It's limitless, and that's how we just get so many content ideas each time we speak to them, and each time we think of a post for them. So yeah, we always talk about their persona, and not work. And sometimes we combine them together, and it becomes like a deadly combination then.
Interesting, and that is one way to keep yourself different, because I'm sure
Yeah,
each human is different, and this is one way in which you sort of maintain a certain brand value as well as a brand voice, if I'm not wrong.
hmm.
But then again, you're the master of branding, so I'll let you talk. I think while we are almost at the end of our session, there are still a few questions that I really have on my mind, and one of
Yeah,
them being, you conduct so many shows and you meet so many people day in and day out. Also, you sort of talk to so many people, build their brand, help them build their brand or business. Do you at any point have ethical concerns? And I'm sure that at some point or another, you must meet people or see products or services that aren't ethically right or don't sit with your ideology.
yeah.
If there's been any, we would love to know about those instances, and how do you deal with such sort of a dilemma whenever you're faced with such?
Yeah, so just as startups like to blow up their revenues and show something which is not true just for getting
Yeah.
the investor attention, a lot of
Mhm.
people try to tell us that why don't you project us in a way that we are doing something more than what we already have. And while it's very lucrative for us also to write just to make the client happy, but we tell them on the face that this is not the way we deal. If you
Mhm.
want to get things written about you which is not true, you have to find someone else for yourself, because we're not the
Mhm.
right people for you. Probably your approach might be right in your mind, but for us it's not the right thing to do, because
Mhm.
you are building your following basis something which is not true about yourself. And in case, even if one follower meets you in person and they
Mhm.
get to discover the person that you are, which is very different from the person that you showcase on LinkedIn, your
Mhm.
loyalty is gone forever. And it
Mhm.
won't just be for that one person, because the word of mouth spreads like fire. If one person goes out and says that this person has been acting fake on LinkedIn or on any other social media platform,
Yeah.
your reputation is gone for life. You cannot rebuild it or re-innovate it. So that is what we do. A lot of people tell us to talk about something which is just not true. For example, this was for my own speech. One person wanted me to talk about their brand,
Yeah.
and they told me that tell them that you are specially coming and flying down to this city from London to attend the event. While I'd come back from London, already it was a week after
Mhm.
this conversation was happening. Not like I was in London, but they were
Okay.
like, "Hey, it will look good, so good to audience that okay, you're flying especially from London to attend our event. So why don't you speak that?" I'm like, I agree on the optics of it, but this is
Yeah.
not what I'm saying by
Yeah.
any. Even if you pay me like $1 million, I'm not saying that, because it's just like doesn't sit well with my values at least. So yeah, people by the name of money, they try to buy so many things including your voice and your words. But
Yeah.
we have been very clear from day one that we would not be bought by that. We will only be bought by trust, love, loyalty, and transparency. These are the four pillars on which we do businesses with people as well, and we're very very firm on it. It doesn't matter how it will affect our revenues, but we won't let it affect our reputation even if it's lesser revenue for us. So
Absolutely.
that has been there in my mind. But of course, ethics is something which is two side of the coin. People do it, people don't do it. Now it's up to you, how do you want to be a part of the group which doesn't do it, because it's like the same person.
Yeah.
And you have to really be conscious of your own boundaries, because it's very difficult to erase those boundaries by listening to other people and getting carried away. So thankfully I'm surrounded by right people and mentors who
Mhm.
also help me guide and tell me that what is right to do, what is not. Because sometimes your values are so strong that you might end up hurting other people and their sentiments. So there's a way to communicate it also. You cannot be very blunt, because everyone can have their own values, right? It's nothing is right or wrong. It's just about what you accept and what you do not accept.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I make sure that I don't hurt the other person while I say no to them. I make sure I communicate it in a way which is very polite and understandable to the other person as well.
Absolutely. Talking about funding, since we're almost running short of time, I'll quickly get back to that. Web3 crypto entrepreneurs, especially young entrepreneurs at this point, are really keen on getting funding, and there's like plenty of fish in the market. So I think two questions that I have for you is how do you, what advice do you give entrepreneurs who are seeking funding?
Yeah.
What sort of check boxes do you have when you suggest to entrepreneurs what to do, or how to build a profile, and how do you sort of pin pick or sort of bring the right kind of candidates to offer to VCs or investors?
Yeah, it's good that you spoke about this third vertical of getting people higher, because I didn't speak about that business vertical of mine. So, but I'm very happy that you made it out that we do that service as well. So it's quite nice to know that how intuitive our business is, that people understand it by themselves. But talking about, one advice that I'd like to give to founders, which I've also heard from the investors that I've spoken to, that don't raise money when you actually need money. Raise it much before that, when you're already having good cash flow and are even profitable. Because if you raise it when you're on the edge, you might not get help and you will just fall down the peak and everything will be finished. But when you have the runway, even if people do not support you, you know at least that you can sustain for a while. And if people are not supporting you, you can change your strategy and direction in terms of whom you're approaching, because then you will still have that time frame and the window to get funding from other sources if something is not working out. So that is one very big important advice, because a lot of people really wait for the last minute to come to take action. And as
Mhm.
human beings, we are the biggest procrastinators on the earth. So even a driven founder will procrastinate this, thinking that the right time and the right opportunity will come and we'll wait for that. But that's not true. You have to prepare much, much well in advance. And that's why they say, that founders are a different breed of people altogether. They are like visionaries. They need to see things ahead of time, because if they don't, they'll not just destroy themselves, but the other people and their livelihoods also who they are working with. So that is one thing, you have to be really ahead of your time. The second is that do not be too desperate, because it's very simple law of nature that something if you chase, it will run away from you, just like you chase money and money never comes to you. Instead, chase your vision and your purpose, and that is what will attract your customers also towards it. If you see today, like, why does a toothpaste brand, there are so many of them, but why
Yeah.
does one sell more than the other? It's just because of
True.
the way they communicate their purpose and not communicate their features and what ingredients it does it have, because people respond to emotions, your customers specifically. They do not
True.
respond to anything else. So
Mhm.
be very mindful that your EQ is very high, because a lot of founders who have failed is because there is a study on this, by the way, that they had high IQ levels, no doubt. They were very smart person in the room, but just because they were very bad on the EQ, they couldn't understand the people dynamics. And at the end of the day, you're dealing with people, not robots. So how
Mhm.
is your IQ even going to help? So just have a very strong EQ, so that even when you are on the top of the top, you don't feel as if you can walk on the water and fly in the sky. You're still grounded. And even if when you're at the lowest of the low moment, you still feel like, okay, there is the sky to conquer and there is a very high goal to achieve. So that is very one important thing. And the third thing is that get a mentor for yourself, because being a founder is a very, very lonely journey. There is actually a concept called as a founder's depression,
Mhm.
which says that a lot of founders face through ADHD, because things might not always go as
Yeah.
they are planned, and your day whenever you feel like you have achieved something, the next moment something else will happen and you'll feel like you've achieved nothing, literally nothing. So to deal with this kind of cyclical shifts, you really need
Yeah.
to have someone who is cushioning you. Of course, you have to be mentally strong yourself and have a thick skin, and of course be very very independent. But sometimes being humans, when you have a third person or a second person also guiding you, advising you, who can be your confidant, it really helps you boost your confidence, because even if you would take 5 hours to get out of that mental state, you might just get out of it in 5 minutes if you have someone great by your
True.
side. So choose your partner very wisely, be it
Mm.
your life partner, your investor partner, or your mentor who's another partner guiding you. So these are like the top three and the most important advice that I've heard from investors whom I speak to for my show, and I also personally believe in that founders should really, really follow and not just think that okay, but we'll see later what happens. They should start it from day one and really focus on people and processes. That's so important because you cannot build an institution without a team, and you cannot build a team without proper processes because everybody will be scattered then, and you won't be able to control them in a way that you won't be able to keep a track of what's happening in the company if there are no processes. So have your system, people, processes in check, and that's about it. I think life is much more easy than we think it to be. It's just these sanitary checks that need to be in place for us to succeed. Rest is just your hard work and pure effort that you put in.
Thank you so much for some great pieces of advice. And I'm sure that if there are any entrepreneurs watching it or would be watching it later, they would take it down because this is something that a lot of people say to me or on this podcast. And yet again, you've mentioned quite a few of those points and a few of your own, which was really insightful. And most of all, I think big congratulations to you on achieving so much at this young age. And I'm sure that you set an example for so many young women and men, yeah, women, men, and all the other genders out there. So and once again, Radhika, it was really great to have you here. Whatever you said was really motivational even for me, and I look forward to whatever you would be doing in the near future. And I'm sure that the eyes of not just your own communities but all our communities also would be on you in the near future. So yes, all the
Thank
very best to you. And thank you so much for those insightful pieces of advice and some really interesting lessons that all young entrepreneurs can learn from your journey. Before we quickly wrap it up, do you have any final closing thoughts?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that people who are listening to me, if they have any feedback, because I'm always open to that, good, bad, ugly. That's how I develop. And I'd love to know what their views are on the same answers that I said, because having different perspectives really helps you grow as a person. And my
Absolutely.
friend circle is like full of different people. For example, if I am in building women's network, doesn't mean that
Yeah,
my network is also just women. It's people from
absolutely.
medical industry, from music industry. I have painters who are my friends, musicians. And I think having such different people really helps you think so differently at the same problem that you're focusing. So it'll be very interesting for you guys also to let me know. And if there's anything that I can help you with by growing on LinkedIn, just message me. I see all messages by myself personally because a lot of people think that I don't reply or I ignore, which is not true. I reply to everyone unless they're just writing hi, how are you? Please go beyond that and tell me what is it that you're reaching out for, because that makes it more streamlined and I know what is it that I can help you with specifically. So yeah, would be happy to help any of y'all in any ways in terms of either LinkedIn brand building, funding, or even personal life, because that is something that I really have learned through the tough rope and through a lot of reading and speaking to people. So if anyone is facing any challenges, would be very happy to speak to and connect them with the people who can actually help them solve it.
Absolutely. And I'm sure that those people would be learning from the best. So thanks a lot once again, Radhika. And I look forward to having you on our podcast some other time really soon. And in the
Yes,
meanwhile, like I said, all eyes on you and big shout out to you and Radically Yours. I congratulate you on the same and I wish you all the very best for it.
thank you. It was a pleasure to have you. And your questions were quite intriguing, because you're only as good as the questions you're asked. If you wouldn't have asked those intriguing questions, these answers wouldn't have come out. So I always thank the person who is speaking to me, because they are getting this out of me. And it wouldn't have been possible without your research and the time and effort you have personally put into this. So thanks to you.
The pleasure is mine. And for anyone who joined in a little bit late, we will be posting this as an episode on our YouTube, on all our podcast channels. We'll be tagging Radhika as well. So you can check out either Voice of Crypto's accounts or Radhika's to find this episode again. And we'll be back next week with another really interesting guest. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And thanks to you, Radhika, for joining us
Thank
today.
you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.